Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsi, and thank you for joining us. Right now, people are gathering in downtown San Diego to protest violence in Gaza. It comes after Israel renewed military operations this week, breaking the ceasefire agreement. And KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne is live outside of the federal building now with the latest. Tanya, what can you tell us?
Hands off Gaza!
Maya, many eyes are on the conflict that's happening in the Gaza Strip, including from groups here in San Diego. You can see that there's groups gathered here at the federal building in downtown San Diego, where these groups have called for an emergency protest. This comes after Israel broke a ceasefire agreement and launched a surprise airstrike over the Gaza Strip that killed and hurt hundreds of Palestinians, the majority women and children. I'm here with Sabrine. She is with the Palestinian Youth Movement. Sabrine, can you tell me why you organized this here today?
Yeah. So after last night, we saw basically the massacre that happened in Gaza. We saw Israel basically breaking the ceasefire in Gaza, and over 400 Palestinian families, women, children have been massacred. This just comes after 12 days after the Israeli government decided to block all humanitarian aid in the region. That's including water, food, all types of humanitarian aid, medical aid for the people of Palestine and Gaza. So our community felt like it was necessary for us to show, we're not okay with what's happening, especially that the United States has been involved. So we thought it was necessary to show, that we needed to be out here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And now she tells me that these protests will continue as long as the White House continues their support over the attacks over the Gaza Strip. Live in downtown San Diego, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Well, we appreciate that report, Tanya. Unions representing flight attendants and Transportation Security Administration workers gathered at the San Diego International Airport today. KPBS reporter Melissa May says the two unions are supporting each other as they rally for different reasons.
Members of the Association of Flight Attendants marching with signs are calling for an end to contract negotiations. Standing with them is another union, the American Federation of Government Employees, who represents TSA workers. Nyrene Washington is a representative for AFGE.
These are the people have to realize that protects you every day when you're traveling. These are the people that are making sure that nothing prohibited is in these bags. They're making sure that you get to your destination safely.
She's here because earlier this month, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revoked collective bargaining rights for all transportation security officers.
TSOs are scared. They're nervous. They're worried about their livelihood. Ultimately, as we all know, they're trying to lead towards privatization of TSA. That would mean lower wages.
The AFGE says it's illegal for federal employee unions to strike, but they will continue to do informational pickets off-duty. AFGE filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration on March 13th, alleging DHS unlawfully terminated a negotiated contract that protects about 47,000 TSOs nationwide.
It was negotiated between TSA and AFGE, and it was something that is legally binding. So for them to just take that away from us after so many years of hard work is egregious at best.
The lawsuit states the rescission of the 2024 CBA was an act of retaliation by the Trump administration against plaintiff AFGE because of its exercise of its First Amendment right to litigate to protect federal workers. This attempt to punish protected speech is unlawful under the First Amendment. In a statement, DHS said rescinding the collective bargaining agreement will ensure Americans will have a more effective and modernized workforces across the nation's transportation networks.
What do we want? A contract!
The AFGE hopes that a judge will reinstate their contract. Melissa May, KPBS News.
We're in the middle of this dry stretch of weather that's going to last here for the next couple of days. I am tracking warm and breezy weather here for the rest of the week. And overall, I'm tracking great weather in store here for both your Saturday and your Sunday. But then after that, I will be tracking our next chance of rain. It will be a low chance, but it is on that extended forecast. I'll update that timeline coming up.
A San Diego State police sergeant hired to protect and serve is now behind bars accused of possessing child pornography. According to court documents obtained by our media partner KGTV, Homeland Security investigators obtained a warrant to search Paul McLean's house in Menifee last Thursday. Agents found a hard drive with child pornography and videos from what appeared to be a hidden camera inside McLean's home bathroom. McLean was jailed without bond, and his arraignment is scheduled for April 1st. San Diego is updating the manual it uses to design streets. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the goal is to improve safety, but several key safety features are not included.
How many times have you zoned out while driving, only to look down at your speedometer and realize you need to slow down? Chances are the street's design, specifically the width of the lane you're driving in, played a role in your speeding.
But we tend to just go as wide as possible. And that's general, it's a general practice across most states in the U.S.
Shima Hamidi is a professor at the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins University. Traditionally, traffic engineers have viewed wider lanes as safer because they give drivers more of a buffer zone to react and avoid collisions. But Hamidi led a study of more than 1,100 streets in 7 American cities, finding the widest lanes see more crashes.
They tend to be more relaxing for drivers. Drivers drive faster, and that's the speed that actually leads to crashes and more severe number of crashes. When lanes are narrower, drivers tend to be more precautious on their environment and drive more carefully, and that leads to fewer number of crashes.
San Diego's draft update to its street design manual does set a preference for narrowing lanes in some cases, but it also allows for much wider lanes, and the narrowest width allowed, 9 feet, requires extra scrutiny and bureaucratic review. Hamidi says that approach is backwards.
Set the manual to 9 or 10 and ask for exceptions if you want to go higher. And put those exceptions in very few cases that needs to be, really justifying why you need to go wider. That's really not what's happening now in the U.S. It's quite the opposite.
San Diego is still accepting comments on its draft street design manual update. The document is expected to go before the City Council sometime later this year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And over the next few days, we'll detail more elements of safe street design and whether they're being embraced in San Diego. We keep hearing about how things are getting more expensive. In our Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis adds another item to that list: trash pickup.
If you're a homeowner in San Diego, you could be about to pay up to $53 a month for trash pickup. That's $636 a year. Anyone who lives in an apartment, about half of San Diegans, already pays private haulers for trash collection, and that will not change. But for about 235,000 families, their property tax bill will include a new line item for trash fees. How did this happen? It goes back to 2022. The city of San Diego asked voters for permission to study and implement a fee for collecting trash. At the time, this is what the ballot said. A best estimate of what this fee would be at this time, assuming the city only recovers costs for services it currently provides and potential costs to bill and collect fee revenue, ranges from $23 to $29 per month per customer. Now, the city council is considering doubling that estimate. It would make San Diego one of the most expensive trash pickup cities locally. Chula Vista, La Mesa, Carlsbad are all below $37 per month. But other cities, including Long Beach and many Bay Area cities, charge much higher fees. The city is promising several new services: free container replacement, weekly recycling, curbside bulky items pickup, and more. The containers will even have little RFID chips so the city can track them and know whether they really picked it up or not. Cities can only charge fees to cover the specific cost of a service. However, for 100 years, the city had a law that guaranteed that it would pick up trash without a special fee. The 2022 vote repealed that law. The main argument was that the law isn't fair because half of residents already have to pay for trash pickup.
It was unfair, pure and simple. Half of city residents, primarily folks who are living in apartments or condos, were being charged for trash services by a private company. That's been the case for decades. But through their taxes, they were also subsidizing the city. They were also subsidizing the city trash services that they were not receiving.
But now the city is going to rely on the fee to cover some of its massive budget deficit. The city council will consider the fees next week. I'm Scott Lewis for Voice of San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. If you're someone who collects Social Security benefits, there are some major changes on the way that you should be aware of. Amy Kiley breaks it all down.
They can essentially interfere with your ability to get your Social Security check that you've earned.
New rules could make it more complicated for some people to collect their Social Security benefits. The Trump administration says they're aimed at reducing fraud.
By tackling the waste and fraud in entitlements like Social Security, Medicare, can we actually preserve those programs for the future?
One rule, starting March 31st, requires people who can't prove their identity online to visit a field office. Another bars beneficiaries from changing their bank account information by phone, starting March 29th. Those changes come as the agency is closing some field offices and trying to reduce its workforce by about 12%.
Presumably they want people with disabilities to now walk in to some Social Security office, although they're cutting back on these Social Security offices all over this country.
Online services will still be available, but many people who collect Social Security benefits are seniors.
It bugs the crap out of me, but my mom uses the damn landline, and that's how she does things.
President Donald Trump and Republican lawmakers promise they will not cut Social Security.
We're going to love and cherish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
But critics argue
These are not coincidental happenings. There's a design behind this, and it is to try to make these programs die on the vine.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
For the second time in a row, the Federal Reserve is keeping interest rates steady. Analysts say today's decision shows central bankers are waiting to see how the Trump administration's policy changes will affect the U.S. economy. Those changes include heavy tariffs, mass deportations, and a downsizing of the federal workforce. Many economists have predicted there will be at least one rate cut before the end of the year. And in January, the Fed said it expects to have 2 rate cuts in 2025. The U.S. Army's webpage for the most highly decorated military unit in history was purged last week in compliance with President Trump's executive orders on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It's since been restored, but as Rina Nakano explains, many are worried the history of these brave veterans is being erased.
They were fighting the Nazis at war overseas, but at home they were battling discrimination. The U.S. Army's 442nd Regimental Combat Team was made up of 14,000 Japanese Americans, many whose families were unjustly imprisoned in internment camps.
They had a lot to prove to their fellow Americans, but in their minds they knew who they were. They were born and raised here in America.
Their motto, go for broke. Their heroics in the European theater were highly praised, but at a large cost. More than 4,000 Purple Hearts and 21 Medals of Honor.
They became the most highly decorated unit in American military history.
But on Friday, the U.S. Army's website deleted its page on the 442nd Regimental Combat Team.
I believe that this happened because of the current commitment to erasing the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in telling the story of America. And I think that's such a shame.
Mitch Maki is the president of the Go for Broke National Education Center in Little Tokyo. He says the 442nd wasn't the only one. The Arlington National Cemetery website's notable graves section for the Tuskegee Airmen was also gone as of Monday afternoon.
Our African American, our Latinos, our Native American brothers and sisters who have all served in the military, their stories are being erased.
After public outcry, Maki says the 442nd's webpage was partially restored over the weekend. But they're not letting this controversy erase their history.
First floor will have businesses.
Just steps from the museum, crews are working on the new Go for Broke Plaza. It'll have a monument, restaurants, and 250 low-income housing units, all made possible by the Japanese American veterans who purchased this land decades ago. Maki says the museum is determined to spread their story and legacy to future generations, with or without the Army's website.
We hope that race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership can be descriptors of the past and not of the present.
Marina Nakano with that report. The Army says content related to the 42nd Infantry Regiment will be republished to better align with current guidance. Today, crews kicked off a nearly $1 million project to transform Miramar National Cemetery. It's a project that's been years in the making. This is a rendering of what the Memorial Amphitheater will look like after completion. It will add 500 seats, ADA walkways, and new landscaping. The project is expected to take about 3 months. Scripps Health this week announced a new medical center in San Marcos. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn says it's needed as the region's population grows.
This empty lot will soon turn into this, a new medical center. It's 35 years in the making.
The region, for the size it was underserved with the amount of hospital care that was up here.
Eric Bruvald is the CEO of the North County Economic Development Council. He says healthcare providers are starting to see the need.
But as our region has grown, 1.3 million people live north of SR 56. It only makes sense for the major healthcare systems to serve up here. And we're waiting for Sharp and UCSD to figure out how to get to North County.
Scripps bought this 13-acre property on Discovery Street and North City Drive 35 years ago. But CEO Chris Van Gorder says that wasn't the right time to build. He says it makes sense now because the patient load has grown. In a statement to KPBS, he says, "We provide care to a large number of patients in that area, and the Scripps San Marcos Medical Center campus will expand access to even more patients." The new medical center is within walking distance of the new Kaiser Hospital. Van Gorder says Scripps has always planned to build its hospital here, and Kaiser knew that when they built theirs. And with Palomar Hospital a short drive away, Bruvald says the area is essentially becoming a healthcare hub.
But most importantly for the residents up here, that means that specialty care and acute care and rehabilitative care, they can serve those needs closer to where they are, closer to where their families are, and that's just to the benefit of North County residents.
The medical center will include an ambulatory care facility and an acute care hospital with 200 to 250 beds. The ambulatory care facility will be built first, while the hospital is still in the early planning stages. The medical center is expected to be opened by 2031. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
During the pandemic, anxiety and depression rose among college students. In response, UC San Diego students and staff created an app. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says it gives students tailored recommendations for campus resources and events.
College can be stressful. Many universities offer counseling, social events, and other resources for students. But on a large campus like UC San Diego's, sifting through all the options can be a daunting task. That's where Willow comes in.
Willow is your go-to app for everything UCSD, centralizing all resources and events that we have on campus into one app.
Jerens Castillo is studying cognitive science. He designed the app.
You get to select different preferences through each category that we have, such as mental health and wellness. For this, I'll just say relationships, one-to-one therapy, and yoga, and then physical health. So we'll do rec center activities, personal growth, lifestyle improvement.
Then it shows resources you might like based on those preferences, from basketball games and camping trips to career fairs and food pantries. Crisis lines and other emergency services are also accessible from the homepage. Castillo says even he was surprised at all his university had to offer.
Because once I started working on Willow, we were looking at so many resources, whether it be mental, physical health, spirituality, and I started to realize how much I don't know, especially as a fourth year.
Dr. Ed Junkins is the executive director of UC San Diego's Student Health and Well-Being. He says students are experiencing more anxiety and depression, but don't know how to help themselves.
We have a great deal of resources for students. A lot of times students don't know how to get to these resources, so they can't help themselves when it's early enough to intervene.
In a spring 2023 survey, 40% of UC San Diego students reported that stress negatively impacted their academics. More than half reported feeling lonely. The state of California appropriated $5 million in funding for the university to create a mental health platform for students.
The interpretation of that call on our campus was to put thought into designing and innovating an app for students by students.
Willow launched last fall after 2 years of work by students, faculty, and staff. Through student interviews and focus groups, the app's designers learned that mental health and well-being aren't just about going to therapy.
A big part of our finding with the students originally was that the challenges with mental health are not just about somebody being depressed, but rather the causes of depression or anxiety or whatever that might be, and that can relate to the overall wellness of a person. It could be your academics or housing insecurity or anything else.
Manas Bedmata designed the app's artificial intelligence. Along with the categories students pick when customizing their preferences, the AI tracks how students interact with the app so it can make better recommendations.
As and when we get more users on the app or as we get more activity on the app, we start learning a lot more about what is the overall, what I like to call the pulse of the campus, where what are students generally liking or not liking.
He says university administrators could use that data when deciding what kinds of resources, classes, and activities to offer. Junkins says other UC campuses could eventually use Willow too.
We're very excited that the prospect of sharing the app, not only across the system, but possibly even with partners regionally.
In the meantime, Bedmata, Castillo, and other students who worked on the app are already seeing it in action.
To see it throughout campus, to see my friends' faces on like bus stops, like even off campus, it's the coolest thing ever. And to see like my friends say that they're using this, and they didn't even know that I made it. They're like, oh, dude, I saw this on Willow. And I'm like, I made that.
The latest version of the app features collections of resources for different types of students, like freshmen getting to know the campus. Castillo's advice, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
You kind of have to be shameless when you're on this app, because sometimes some people will think, oh, I'm too cool to go to this. But honestly, taking that away from everything, that's where you find the coolest people.
People also looking to build connections with their fellow Tritons. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, as we head into tonight, I am tracking some mild weather here, especially across the coast. There will be some low clouds, but overnight lows primarily for the San Diego metro will be in the upper 40s to low 50s. Across the rest of the region, we'll see a mix of 30s, 40s, and 50s here for overnight lows. 42 tonight for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. And future track radar is showing that as we head throughout tomorrow morning by 6 a.m., some cloud coverage there across the coastal areas. But overall, by 9 a.m., we're going to start to clear out and see lots of sunshine in the forecast. By midday, there will be some heavier rain storms developing across northern parts of California with some mountain snow during the afternoon hours. But for that 5 o'clock afternoon drive time, look at this. North winds. But overall, lots of sunshine, nice clear skies. But as we head into the evening hours after sunset, we will be watching out for a little bit more cloud coverage, slowly starting to work its way back into the forecast. And that'll last here as we head throughout the Friday morning hours. So for Thursday, the dry weather continues with that rainfall up to the north. Temperatures here for your Thursday afternoon, overall pretty mild. We'll see a mix of 70s primarily, upper 60s, low to mid 70s, even some 80s there for portions of the desert. 73 in Escondido, 68 downtown San Diego. And then as we head into Friday, the dry and mild weather will continue here as we head into the weekend. For that coast 5-day outlook forecast, once again, feel like sunny skies and highs in the 60s. Then you're going to love my forecast here for the next couple of days. Overnight lows will be a little mild for a couple of hours with lows dipping into the 40s, but highs in the upper 60s. Plenty of sunshine. Looks like it'll stay dry here across the coastal areas. As we look at the inland forecast, lots of sunshine, highs in the 70s, overnight lows dipping into the 40s. A little bit breezy this weekend. And then for the mountains, we'll be in the 50s with overnight lows in the 40s. Some lows in the 30s there early on Monday. But then after that for the desert, 90s back in the forecast here as we head into early parts of next week.
Well, we have officially entered March Madness, and San Diego is well represented in the women's tournament. UC San Diego and San Diego State are in. Two players who played a huge role in both teams' runs. UCSD sophomore guard Sumaya Sugapong and SDSU freshman guard Naomi Panganiban. Sumaya was named the Big West Championship Most Outstanding Player of the Year, and Naomi made the Mountain West All-Tournament team on the way to claiming the conference title. Both are also former teammates at La Jolla Country Day School.
For me as a coach, I'm just excited to be part of their journey. Credit to them, this hard work, consistency, relentlessness. They're both of them just really proud of where they've gone.
And in just a few minutes, UCSD will play Southern University, and San Diego State will face off against LSU on Saturday. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow. In the KPBS newsroom, NPR's Morning Edition is discussing how staff cuts at the National Weather Service could interrupt the weather forecasts across the country and why Alaska could be hit especially hard. And KPBS Midday Edition has the weekend arts preview, including an interview with a jazz pianist. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.